Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Chanda Macias, and I am blessed to have the opportunity to spend this time with Jessica Billingsley. Jessica is the CEO of a publicly traded company, Akerna, and we're going to have a real discussion today about what that really means and what it means to be a leader. Even though people would like to say a woman leader, she is a woman, but no, she's a leader of a publicly traded company that is really the backbone of the industry. Thank you, Jessica, for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me, Shonda.
So, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and then also the company that you built from scratch?
Sure. Well, I don't know how far back we're going, but maybe we'll start with my background is technical. I have a computer science degree, and I founded my first business at 22. And I was actually still running that business when I invested in one of the first licensed operators in Colorado, first licensed cannabis operators. And I did that because I have a family member with a demyelinating illness similar to MS. And I was really interested in the efficacy of cannabis for treating MS. And I thought, it was a business investment that could potentially make some money. When I invested in this operation, and they asked me to come in and take a look, and as the investor with a technology company, they asked me to choose what software to use to run the business. And it was very clear early on that we didn't really know what was in the cannabis that we were producing, and we needed to be compliant, to track, and to create some transparency and accountability for what was in the product. And that's still what we do 13 years later. and more than $30 billion in legal cannabis transactions that we have tracked through our system, we're still providing transparency and accountability and providing the tech backbone upon which the industry runs today.
That's amazing. And so it's interesting that you use your own background and your own passion in technology to really formulate something that was yours, that you own for your own passion and your own purpose. And that passion landed, what, 13 billion, you said?
Well, 30 billion.
Excuse me.
We've tracked more than $30 billion through our system.
Wow, that is so amazing. And then you decided that you wanted to take this platform to a bigger venue, and you decided to go public with it. Can you tell us about what really pushed you in that direction?
So I was out in the market raising our third round of private financing, and we had a number of great suitors of lead investors for that round, venture capitalist investors, high net worth family office investors. And we also received an unsolicited offer at that time from a special purpose acquisition company, a SPAC, that had become the first entity like that. They successfully achieved a NASDAQ listing as the SPAC with the purpose of acquiring a company ancillary to the cannabis industry. So we saw this opportunity to potentially be the first ancillary company listed on NASDAQ and have that opportunity to do a little consolidation in the space, to have a public currency to leverage, and we seized the opportunity.
Wow, that's so amazing. And to do it in cannabis, because all the challenges of us going public in cannabis where it's still an illegal drug, quote unquote, and we know people use it for medicine purposes today, that was pretty amazing. For those that didn't understand that, it was one of those things when she rang the bell, we were like, she did it. And she did not only do it for women in the industry, she did it for the industry. And that's the biggest difference, because when you're a pioneer, you start to pave the way for those that come after you. So all these businesses that are in the tech space are somewhat responsible to saying thank you to Akerna and all the work that Jessica personally has done in her career. And we're very proud of you. And so I'm going to pivot a little bit more into managing all of this. You have a lot of stakeholders. You have employees, you have investors, you have, the whole gamut, clients. How do you really manage their expectations?
I think the very biggest challenge of running a public company is to balance the expectation of quarter to quarter performance and 2 quarters ago performance that you report publicly with what is in the long-term best interest of the business from a planning perspective. And we put a lot of work into that, both within the company, with our internal messaging, and with our external messaging as well, around we are building this company for the long term, and we make decisions that are good for the long term, and try to get above the quarter to quarter noise, but it's unavoidable to some extent.
Looking back on it, for all the women that are thinking about going public, would you consider that the best means for if you're in the private industry versus going public? What would you think it would, what are the differences, or would you give that advice to women today in the cannabis space?
Gosh, that's a great question. And to your point, I think it really does depend on a case-by-case basis why you might want to be public, what you're trying to leverage. And I don't want to sugarcoat it. The truth is there are more public CEOs by the name of John than there are female public CEOs in total. That's a real statistic. And as these businesses are thinking about their options, being public versus private, there's a very real overhead to being public. There's reporting, there's compliance, and you have to be at a scale that overhead is not too much. Coupling that with if the interest is M&A, it's a lot easier to do a little bit of M&A when you have a public currency to leverage. So I think it depends on what is the business looking for most. Are they looking for financing? In which case, private may be just as, in fact, at this moment in time, the private valuations are significantly higher than public valuations. That's not always been the case, but certainly this year that has been the case. Or public, and generally one of the major reasons to go public is to have that public currency. And sometimes companies go public because they're pushed by their investors to get an exit and some liquidity.
So I know for myself personally, being in the cannabis industry, being a multi-state operator and continuing to grow, I was faced with different challenges. And my challenges were, do I stay medium? Do I go big? And then I thought about the livelihood of going public. And for myself, I decided that staying private was important because it also offered me a balance with my family. And I know that being in the cannabis industry over 10 years, I look back and I say, wow, this is an incredible journey. But a lot of times I put my head down and I didn't smell the flowers and I didn't look at the trees. And at this point in my life, I really want to enjoy the rest of this journey. So that means maybe not dominating the world, maybe it's just doing what my passion and purpose directs me to do. Is there any advice that with your journey you would give to your daughter or other women that are making those decisions for themselves?
Softball there. Gosh. First, to have the self-awareness to say, I'm going to be this size and I'm going to grow at this pace and here's the impact that I can have. I just have the utmost respect and admiration for you. And advice from my own daughter, and we've been talking about this a lot because she's 16 this month and thinking about what she wants to go do when she leaves home and what she may want to study in college. And I think COVID and the pandemic and some of the resulting changes have really changed how many people think about aspirations in the world and think about what used to be called work-life balance and now I think is generally called work-life ratio. And for me, I love to work and I love business and I love innovative technologies that change the world. And I love interacting with other businesses and the opportunity, certainly the opportunity that you and I have participated in over the past decade of literally being an integral part of legalizing cannabis and creating that access so that today more Americans have access than not. And that's no small feat. And so for young women, where do you want to have an impact, and what does that look like? And maybe one piece of direct advice. It's been very popular to be an entrepreneur, to be a founder, and it's much more popular than when we started. Yeah. There are events and meetups, and it's a career path that women today know about in a way that we probably didn't when we were in college. It was a strange thing that a few people did. And I think the one piece of advice I'd have for young women is, do you really need to found your own thing? Or do you want to be employee number 14 at the next Uber or Reddit, or you name the major company? It doesn't always have to be a brand new idea.
That's interesting, because what I hear is to thine own self be true. And I think trying to define that truth for yourself versus the expectation people put on you is two different things, and that you have to follow your own path and your own journey. And that is very admirable. I think as I move forward in my own journey, I'm thinking more so what that balance looks like, what other lives I can touch, but also what other lives I can be a part of. And I think moving forward is definitely going to be more calculated, more intentful, but it's been such a beautiful journey for us to pioneer this industry together and continue to do some wonderful things. And you've been just a blessing to my life.
Likewise. Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.